I used to believe loyalty still meant something, that if you showed up early, stayed late, kept your head down, and poured your heart into the work, someone would notice, especially family. But I was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning when everything shifted. I remember the low buzz of the fluorescent lights hanging over the front desk and the soft scent of fresh lilies on the counter, my mom's favorite flower. I just refilled the candy bowl in the lobby and was glancing over the conference schedule when the glass doors swung open, and my father walked out, the board of directors following close behind. "Mia," he said, his voice sharp and flat like he was grinding nails. "Conference room A. Now." I froze. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a full sentence, just a command. I checked the calendar. No meeting with me was listed. The boardroom was packed. Every executive was seated, including my older brother Mark, who shot me a quick, almost smug look before looking away. I took the only empty chair at the far end, opposite my father. He didn't waste a second. "We've been reviewing the company's structure," he began, standing as if addressing strangers instead of his own daughter. "It's time for some tough decisions, Mia." His gaze locked on me. "Your role has been reassessed." I blinked, confused. "You're a receptionist," he said. "You answer phones, greet clients. That's not a strategic position. We need professionals running this company. Family or not, it doesn't matter." The room fell silent for a moment, as if even the air stopped moving. Then someone chuckled. Another laugh followed. I think it was one of the finance officers, but I wasn't sure. My vision blurred. They were laughing at me. "I've been here for 7 years," I said quietly, my voice barely steady. "I've done everything you've ever asked. I know every client, every internal process, every system update. I trained half the people sitting around this table." "That's not the point," he snapped. "You're not qualified for anything beyond the front desk. That's where you started. And that's where it ends. We're restructuring. You'll be gone by the end of the week. HR has your exit papers." The words didn't register immediately. My body caught them before my mind could. Leaving. Exit paperwork. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. Not even Mark. Especially not Mark. And just like that, my father turned away and kept talking to them, acting as if I wasn't even there anymore. "Let's move on. Next topic, client escalation protocols." I sat frozen for a full minute, trying to breathe without trembling. But my hands shook. My chest burned. I stood slowly and quietly. My chair scraped softly against the floor. Just as I reached the door, the glass swung open again. A man in a navy suit stepped into the boardroom like he owned the space. It was Mr. Howard, CEO of Garnett and Rowe, our biggest client. A man who never visited without an appointment. A man my father had spent years trying to impress. He walked past the table like no one there mattered. Then he stopped. "Where's Mia?" he asked. No one answered. He glanced around again. "Is she in the lobby?" I turned, stunned. His face lit up when he saw me. "Mia, there you are." He came over and shook my hand. "I've been calling your direct line all morning. I wanted to thank you in person for fixing the delivery issue last week. Saved us 6 figures. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My father stared at us, pale as the marble conference table. Mark looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. "I told your dad last month," Mr. Howard continued, now addressing the room. "This company runs on relationships. And this woman," he pointed at me, "is the only reason we're still doing business with you. Thought someone should say it out loud." No one laughed this time. I looked at my father. His lips were tight, knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the table. He said nothing. In that silence, it hit me. I'd spent years trying to prove I was valuable, but maybe I never needed to prove a thing. Not to him. Not anymore. I said nothing as Mr. Howard left, giving me a nod, a kind smile, and a firm handshake before walking back out the same glass doors. The boardroom was quiet behind him. I stood there, unsure what to do next. Half of me wanted someone, anyone, to speak up, apologize, backtrack, admit maybe I wasn't just a receptionist. But no one moved. Not even my father. He sat rigid, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the polished table, as if it might offer a way to fix what had just fallen apart in front of us all. But there was nothing. So I turned, walked out, and returned to the reception desk for what felt like it might be the last time. I sat in my chair, the same one I'd used for 7 years, and stared at my reflection in the black screen of the idle computer. Behind me, voices rose again inside the boardroom. My father's sharp tone. Mark's defensive words I couldn't make out, but I didn't need to. I already knew the subject. Me. By the end of the day, everyone in the office had heard. The whispers began quietly. A coworker who usually avoided eye contact offered me coffee. Leah, one of the junior analysts, stopped by nervously to ask if what happened in the boardroom was true. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. People only ask those questions when they already know the answer. That evening, I left right at 5. No overtime, no last-minute emails, no updating call logs or refiling contracts. Just me, walking out into the cool autumn air with my bag over my shoulder, feeling betrayal cut sharp in my chest. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the edge of the city, parked near the old coffee shop I used to visit fresh out of school, and sat in the car with the engine off. The parking lot was mostly empty. The windows fogged up as I sat, staring at the dashboard, replaying it all over and over in my mind. What had I done wrong? Had I pushed too hard to be noticed? Made myself too available, too useful, until they forgot I was more than just the role I played? Or maybe, just maybe, they'd never truly seen me at all. A knock on my window startled me. It was Leah, the analyst from earlier. She held 2 to-go coffee cups in her hands. "I took a chance," she said, nervously smiling. "Thought maybe this is where you'd be." I rolled down the window slowly. "How did you know?" "You talk about this place a lot," she said, "especially when things get tough." I opened the door, stepped out, and took the coffee. We leaned against the car, silent for a long moment. Then she finally spoke. "Everyone's talking about what Mr. Howard said today," she said. They weren't laughing anymore. I gave a slight nod. Too late for that, I thought. "No," she said softly. "It's not too late for you." She handed me a napkin on which someone had scribbled a list of names in blue pen, 8 or 9 coworkers. "They want to help," she told me. "You've been holding everything together behind the scenes for years, helping everyone else. They haven't forgotten." I studied the names, people from sales, tech support, even someone from HR. Carefully, I folded the napkin and slipped it into my coat pocket. That night, lying awake and staring at the ceiling, I made a choice. They might have stripped me of my title, but they hadn't taken away my worth. And I wasn't going to leave with my head down. Not yet. Not without making sure everyone in that office understood exactly who they'd tried to erase. Because respect isn't handed to you. It's something you demand. And I was done staying quiet. By Wednesday morning, I sensed a change. It wasn't obvious at first, but it was there. Pauses in conversations as I passed by, lingering looks from coworkers who had barely noticed me before, a nod from Mr. Lambert, the CFO, who usually only acknowledged the executives. Something was shifting. I sat at my desk, still officially the receptionist, still answering phones, but I stopped pretending. No more forced smiles, no laughing at bad jokes, no last-minute errands for meetings I wasn't invited to. I did my job efficiently and calmly, like someone who already knew something nobody else did. Because I did. Mr. Howard's visit had cracked open something, not just in my father, but in the whole company. News spread fast, faster than I expected. And it wasn't just inside these walls. Clients began calling, asking for me by name. First, an email from Amir, our logistics partner in Dubai. Then Clara in Chicago. Then a call from a senior rep at Rowan Financial, all with the same question: can we speak to Mia? Suddenly, I wasn't just the person who greeted them. I was the one they trusted. The one who solved problems, remembered birthdays, noticed when someone sounded exhausted on the phone, the one who never needed credit but always got the job done. Until now. I kept quiet. Even as I forwarded messages and patched calls through, I let the proof speak for itself. Each time someone bypassed a department head to talk to me, another crack formed in the glass palace my father had built around his executives. By Thursday, my brother Mark cornered me near the break room. "You need to stop making this a thing," he whispered. I looked at him slowly, sipping my tea. "Making what a thing?" I asked quietly. He lowered his voice even more. "You know exactly what I mean. Clients skipping the chain of command, the gossip. Dad's furious. Maybe he should have read the room before firing me in front of the board." I replied coolly. That was his choice. Mark leaned closer, deciding his next move. "We're restructuring. That's just business." "No," I said firmly. "That's ego." He scoffed and walked away, but his shoulders were stiff and his steps quicker than usual. He wasn't just angry. He was nervous. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Mr. Howard's office. His assistant, Mara, sounded hesitant. "Mia, he'd like to invite you to the quarterly leadership dinner. It's this Friday, a private event with just partners and senior contacts." I paused. "I'm not a senior or anything." She laughed softly. "To him you are." That night, I held the invitation in my hands, my heart pounding. This wasn't just a social dinner. It was a statement. Mr. Howard was making it clear. I mattered. I thought about telling someone. I even opened a message draft to my father, then closed it. Let him find out the same way I did, among a room full of watching eyes. Friday came faster than I expected. I took the day off, citing a personal errand. No one questioned it. At 7 p.m., I walked into the glass-walled restaurant overlooking the bay, dressed in a black dress, hair pinned up, wearing confidence like armor. Mr. Howard greeted me warmly. "I meant every word I said the other day," he told me as we sat down. "You've been the most consistent, competent person we've dealt with here. If this company can't see that, it's their failure, not yours." I swallowed hard and nodded. "Thank you." He leaned in, voice low. "Off the record, how much do you want to stay there?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I didn't answer immediately. Truth was, I wasn't sure. Part of me wanted to walk away and start fresh. But another part, the part that had spent years laying this foundation, wanted to be here when the walls cracked. "I'm not done yet," I said at last. He nodded. "Good, because I might need your help." That night, driving home with headlights streaking across my windshield, I felt it, the shift. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was preparing. The tide was turning, and they had no idea what was coming next. By Monday morning, I wasn't just the receptionist anymore. Not to the staff, not to the clients, and definitely not to my father. But the funny thing about power? Once people sense you have it, they either try to align with you or quietly plan to take it away. I noticed the small signs first. A printed meeting agenda, usually handed directly to the executives, started showing up on my desk too. A few department heads asked for my opinion on client communications under the guise of curiosity, but I knew they were testing me. Even Mark stopped by the front desk with a fake friendly smile and a forced, "Hey, Mia, everything okay this week?" I knew what he was really asking. "Are you planning something?" And the answer was yes. Absolutely. Mr. Howard and I spoke again, more openly this time. His company was planning a joint venture with ours, A high-stakes deal that would open doors to international partnerships, the kind of deal that would shape reputations and careers. He wanted me involved. "They trust you," he said. "You're the face they know, not your brother, not even your father." That moment, something crystallized. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. If the company was going to move forward with integrity, the truth had to come out. Not just about my role, but about how far ego and legacy had overridden merit. So I began gathering evidence, quietly and strategically. Years of emails with clients, reports, resolution logs. Every time I'd stepped in to fix mistakes, the executives had buried. Every last-minute save, every crisis I de-escalated, even holiday coverage when no one else showed up. It wasn't just a paper trail, it was a story, one they couldn't rewrite. Then I met Denise for lunch. She'd been in marketing for years and knew more than most. She'd always been kind but cautious, never one to speak out or get too involved, until now. "I've got something you need to see," she said, sliding a flash drive across the table. "What is it?" I asked quietly. She glanced around before answering. "Meeting minutes, internal memos, things I was told to delete." I blinked. "Why didn't you?" She smiled softly. "Because I've been underestimated too." That afternoon, I stayed late after everyone else had left. The office lights dimmed except for the glow of my monitor. I plugged in the drive and opened the files. There it was, emails between Mark and Dad discussing optics and plans to phase me out. Phrases like, "keep her out of the loop," and "she's too visible," and "clients are starting to notice." But the most damning was a strategy memo, drafted by Mark, suggesting they gradually absorb my responsibilities and frame my removal as a role realignment. It was dated 2 weeks before that board meeting where I'd been blindsided. I leaned back, silence pressing in from the empty office. They hadn't just fired me, they'd plotted it, a quiet execution behind polished doors. Yet they'd forgotten one critical thing. You don't erase the backbone of your business, especially someone who's held it up for nearly a decade, not without leaving a trace. The next morning, I made copies, one for myself, one for Mr. Howard, and one sealed in an envelope for someone who might need it later. Then I walked into the office like nothing had changed. But everything had. At 10 a.m., Dad called a leadership meeting. He hadn't held one since the day he let me go. I wasn't invited, but I knew the agenda before anyone spoke. Rumor had it the joint venture with Garnett and Rowe was stalled. Mr. Howard wasn't moving forward until leadership stability was confirmed. That confirmation was me. They just didn't realize it yet. I watched from the glass wall outside. Mark paced nervously. Dad tapped his pen like a slow drum of denial. The other executives sat stiffly, whispering among themselves. Then Mr. Howard arrived, calm and collected, briefcase in hand. But this time, he wasn't alone. After 30 seconds, I opened the door and stepped inside. The room fell silent. Mr. Howard smiled faintly and motioned to the chair beside him. "Mia, please join us." Dad's eyes narrowed. "She's not on the leadership team." Mr. Howard didn't flinch. "She is now." I sat down, not just to take a seat, but to reclaim my voice. This wasn't about titles anymore. It was about truth, and I had plenty of it. As I settled beside Mr. Howard, I felt the atmosphere shift. Not physically, but perceptually. The old dynamics, the unspoken hierarchy, the way everyone deferred to Dad or looked to Mark for approval, all changed. Suddenly, no one knew where to look or who held the real power. I stayed silent at first, letting the quiet speak for me. Mr. Howard started the meeting with his usual calm tone, but there was steel beneath his words. "Before we discuss next steps in the joint venture, I want to address something more fundamental: trust." The word hit the room like a hammer. He scanned the table. "Over the past year, I've watched how this company operates. Your client relationships, leadership, internal dynamics. Frankly, I'm concerned. Dad stiffened. With all due respect, I don't think this is the place. No, Mr. Howard interrupted sharply, turning to him. This is exactly the place. He pulled a folder from his briefcase, the same one I'd given him that morning. I've reviewed documentation that paints a troubling picture, a deliberate effort to sideline one of your most capable employees, an employee responsible for keeping several of your largest accounts afloat, including mine. He slid the folder across the table to Dad. Dad didn't touch it. Mark shifted uneasily, his face draining of color. This is ridiculous, Dad finally said. Mia was a receptionist. We gave her a job. She was never what? I cut in quietly. Never qualified. Never supposed to be more than the girl smiling at the front desk and keeping your calendar. He looked at me, surprised. But I didn't back down. Do you know how many times I cleaned up after your mistakes, Dad? How many clients I saved when Mark missed deadlines, when wrong proposals went out, or names were forgotten on calls? The room stayed silent. I didn't do it for applause, I continued, but I sure as hell didn't do it to be erased. Across the table, Denise gave a subtle nod, quiet support. Mr. Howard leaned forward. Let me be clear. My company won't move forward with any deal unless Mia is involved at a senior level. Period. She's not a receptionist. She's the reason you've kept us this long. The weight of his words hung heavy. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, and if she leaves, we leave too. Dad's jaw tensed. You're letting personal bias cloud business. No, Mr. Howard said firmly. Silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, Dad reached for the folder and flipped it open. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. And I watched it happen. The realization that this wasn't just embarrassing. This was evidence, exposure, signed, dated, and traceable. When he looked up, his face was pale. Mia, he said quietly, why didn't you come to me directly? I did, I said, for 7 years. For the first time in my life, he had no answer. After the meeting, people avoided my gaze, not out of contempt, but shame. Some seemed like they wanted to say something, apologize maybe. Others stayed silent, unsure how to face the truth that had been dragged into the fluorescent light. Mark said nothing. He followed Dad out, head down, fists clenched. I stayed behind. Mr. Howard turned to me as the room emptied. You handled that with grace, he said. I shook my head. I handled it with facts. He smiled. Same thing in your case. Walking back through the office, I passed my old desk. Someone else sat there, a temp, probably. She gave me a small, uncertain wave. I nodded politely and kept going. I didn't need that desk anymore. I'd earned a seat at the table. It's strange how fast things can change. 1 week after that meeting, my name was on a new office door. Client strategy lead, no more front desk, no more receptionist. I had a real team now, a real title, and a seat at executive meetings where people didn't just listen, they asked for my input. But it wasn't the title that mattered most. It was the way I saw myself. For years, I bought into the belief that I had to constantly prove I belonged, that working twice as hard was the price to be taken seriously at all. I put in the overtime, delivered beyond expectations, cleaned up messes that weren't mine. Yet somehow, I was still cast aside like I didn't exist. Now, I see things differently. Respect isn't simply earned through loyalty alone. It's something you claim firmly, setting clear boundaries. And I finally learned how to do just that. Still, the aftermath wasn't without its turbulence. The ripples lingered. In the days that followed, my father barely spoke to me. We'd pass each other in hallways or meetings, but his words were terse, clipped, professional, not cold, just distant. as if he didn't quite know what to make of me anymore. Mark? He didn't come back at all. Before the week ended, an official email announced that Mark Langston was stepping down as vice president, effective immediately. No explanation, no farewell gathering, no word from Dad. Just a quiet, calculated exit. Rumor had it that Mark faced a choice: resign quietly or undergo an internal probe. Considering the evidence I'd handed over, it was hardly a difficult decision. Reading that email, I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. That's the only way to describe it. Because this had stopped being about revenge. It was about clarity. The following Monday brought an unexpected invite to a round table with Mr. Howard and other key partners. It was the kind of meeting I hadn't even known existed, where decisions were made before the rest of the company heard a thing. The sort I'd always been told was above my pay grade. And yet, here I was, not because of politics, but because of undeniable proof. Later, back at my office, I found an envelope on my desk. No name, just for Mia, written in handwriting I recognized instantly, my father's. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a handwritten note, stark and unadorned. No letterhead. Mia, you've always possessed more strength than I knew how to handle. I see that now. You didn't simply earn your place. You defended it, even when I made it nearly impossible. That resilience wasn't something I taught you. You built it yourself. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm proud of you. Dad. I read it 3 times before setting it aside. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't erase past mistakes, but it was a beginning. A quiet admission that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to change. That evening, I stayed late, not out of obligation, but choice. I wandered the silent halls of an office I'd long considered a second home, passing the lobby, the break room, and the old desk where I'd spent countless unacknowledged hours keeping things afloat. A realization struck me. Legacies aren't simply inherited, they're rewritten. Dad had built this company on discipline and drive, but I was helping rebuild it with something just as vital: dignity. That was the true transformation. 1 week later, I launched a mentorship initiative aimed at junior staff, especially women and entry-level employees who often got overlooked. We named it Frontline to Future, a space where people could grow and be seen before having to fight for recognition. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving the system. I was changing it. I wasn't bitter, nor angry. I was proud. Not because I was finally given power, but because I realized I never needed permission to claim it. In the end, the title on my door or the seat at the table wasn't what mattered most. It was the voice I reclaimed and the courage to use it. And that, I understood, was the legacy I wanted to leave behind, not just for myself, but for everyone who's ever been told they were just anything.